G'day guys, so today we're taking this motor down to Melbourne Marine and we're going to go through the process of getting a new motor fitted.
Hi, I'm Andrew Stephen from Melbourne Marine Centre. I'm here to talk to you about the Mercury 150 horsepower four-stroke. We're obviously fitting a brand new engine to Brett's boat. We've got his 550 BR in the workshop at the moment. We're removing his Optimax and fitting this brand new 150. So some of the reasons I guess people will repower from an Optimax product into a new four-stroke. Obviously you do away from having the requirements of an oil bottle in the back of the boat, so your DFI Optimax product is a direct fuel injected two-stroke. So a four-stroke product, there's no fumes, there's no requirement to purchase oil. They run a lot smoother and certainly a lot quieter. These 150 horsepower four-strokes are a 3-litre engine, so they're a large capacity four-stroke motor and they develop an awful lot of torque. They're also a maintenance-free valve train and they run a timing chain instead of a timing belt. So long term, in terms of serviceability, cheaper to service and maintain as well in the long run. They run a low gear ratio, which allows us to swing big diameter propellers, and you combine that with that 3-litre power plant, gets the boat up out of the hole onto the plane really quickly and at low RPM. So again, saving on fuel. Some of the other benefits obviously with the Mercury product, brand new product comes with a 6-year warranty, so it's a 3+3-year warranty program. Now, some of the questions we get based around repower are obviously people coming out of a two-stroke into a four-stroke. One of the main questions that we get is the weight of the four-stroke versus a two-stroke. Obviously, over the years, the brands like Mercury have reduced the weight of the four-stroke compared to two-stroke product. So nowadays, that weight variation between the two products is a lot more minimal, so it doesn't really make a difference, especially when you're pulling an oil bottle out of a boat, which is 10 litres, 10 kilos, and there might not even be that variation between the outboards now. Some of the other things to consider that people will often ask is your options of gauges that are available in today's market from Mercury. Anything from SmartCraft SC1000s through to Vessel View 4, through to larger screens, and even interfacing into products like Lowrance sounders and Simrad sounders and stuff like that is all available. So it makes a repower an easy option for most people. And where repower is really good is that if you love your boat and just don't like your outboard anymore, be it that it's got high hours or it's just a dirty old two-stroke that blows a lot of smoke and is very difficult to start, that's where repower is really, really good. So if you're planning to keep your boat for a period of time, putting a brand new engine on the back of it is good value and it's going to see you through for years to come.
Right, so we've got these are all the Mercury gauges?
Yes, that's right. So basically if we start down the bottom here, you've got SC1000. Now that's available in both black and white, different colour surrounds from chrome to white to black. This one here is called Vessel View 403. This is the single vessel link, which you can also get in dual for twin outboard installations. But this is what we're going to put into your boat, Brett, so that we can link everything into your Lowrance units.
Yeah.
This is Vessel View 502. That's Vessel View 703. And this one's Vessel View 903.
So what's the difference between them all?
So Vessel View 403 is where it starts for Mercury. It's a very basic 4-inch gauge, but it does display an awful lot of information, as you can see whilst it's scrolling through there in demo. Vessel View 5 is a 5-inch touchscreen gauge. It basically runs the same information as what you'll get out of the 403. However, it does have the ability to plug in transducers. You can put a card into it as well for GPS if required, but it's just a touchscreen gauge, so you'll get all the information that you want out of the 502 gauge.
And that just connects via NEMA to your sounder and stuff?
Through the Vessel Link system. So the same system that we're putting into your boat, in the Vessel Link.
This one?
We'll put one of those in there and then we'll add in one of these gauges here.
Beautiful.
Vessel View 7, basically all you're doing is stepping up in gauge size, and then you get the option of the buttons down the side with Vessel View 7. So still a touchscreen unit. And again, it'll display all that Mercury information that you're trying to get, but it'll also have the ability to be used as a sounded GPS unit. And then 903 is the same as well. You can still get the information from a sounded GPS unit. It's just a larger screen without the buttons down the side.
Yeah, it's cool. You can read, I've just noticed Sonic Hub, that's a stereo as well. You can
Yep. All of the units, 703 903 and even 502, you can plug into NEMA to get all that data as well.
Yeah. That's the prop I'm going to get on there?
Most likely it'll be an inertia, yeah. That generally suits most applications these days.
Before I come down here, I was asking the people what motor should I get, and everyone said I should get a Pro XS, and you talked me out of it.
I did.
So can you tell me why? And
The Pro XS is a great product.
yeah.
It suits some applications, in other applications it doesn't always suit. In your instance where you're predominantly fishing,
Yeah.
a standard 150 horsepower engine is perfect. It's a little bit quieter, a bit smoother as well compared to the sporty product in the 150 Pro XS. Obviously with Melbourne Marine Centre, we're most commonly recognised as being a boat dealer for products like Stacer aluminium boats, North Bank fiberglass boats, Mercury Outboards, and then our service centre out the back. What a lot of people don't associate with us is our huge range of fishing tackle that we have upstairs here in our shop. John, who's our fishing expert, is a mad keen fisher. He's always out on the water at any opportunity he can get. So if you're interested in any fishing gear, John's your man you want to come and speak to. But you also have a huge range of boating accessories as well, from electronics, stereos, you know, any widgets that you might need for your boat. It's all here also.
Showroom. Possum's looking for a new whiting boat, so we'll come and have a look in a minute. And all the boys are out the back here.
Yeah, they're all busy. Might be a bit rowdy out here. We'll see how we go.
That's all right. So there it is.
There it is, Brett. So obviously the boys are well into that de-rig, I guess, to start with. So we've removed your old motor, transom solid.
Yeah, I was a bit worried about that.
You were a bit nervous about that,
yeah.
But you know, that's obviously one of the things that you check during a repower is the integrity of the transom. So there's nothing worse than putting a new engine on a dodgy transom. So the boys have checked all that. They've given me the requirements for what we need for control cable lengths and wiring harness lengths, and that's all on order as well.
Yeah, beautiful. And there's my old motor.
There's the old one, yep.
It's a pretty simple process, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, usually it's about a 7 to 10 day turnaround in terms of a repower, as long as it's relatively straightforward and there's no surprises.
Yeah, and you water test them, like they don't just leave. You got to go test to make sure it's all right.
Yeah, correct, mate. We'll stick it on the water, and you know that's how we determine what prop we need at the time. So you know we make sure the engine is achieving good RPM, which is obviously you want it to get closer to that max RPM range. You still want to see what fuel economy is like as well. So you know during that water test phase, that's when we'll look at all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll go have a look in the showroom, and I'll come back in a few days, and we'll see where we're at.
No worries, mate.
Thanks heaps.
Easy.
Oh, all right, guys. I've just bumped into Bill from Navico Group. Bill's going to give us a bit of a rundown on the new Simrad.
The NSS 4 that we've just released. The redraw facility on this new NSS 4 is just unbelievable. You can't keep up with how quick it is. So zooming in, everything else, pinch zoom or zoom in, either way. You've got CMAP Reveal X card on the new systems. So they're high-res bathy, so all your contour lines, everything else is all on there, ready to go. You've got options north up, heading up, course up, just by a touch of a button. All your menu system on the other side is down one side, so you can go through and adjust anything that you like. Your high-res bathy you can take off and just leave the reveal. Inside Genesis, you can just have the bathy. If they've been, social guys have been out there and recording their own images of the seafloor and then uploading that. We'll then put it up on the cards and you can see all the contour lines that generates from CMAP Genesis. There's satellite imagery as well, which we can do, so you can see land on there. So there's a whole lot more you can actually do with this unit now. We used to have the old NOS system. Now we've got the new Neon system, so third-party applications, fingers crossed, sea surface temperatures and all sorts of other information can actually go onto these, where on the NOS program, the previous model, we couldn't expand it any further. So we've now brought out this new NSS4 that'll be able to do a lot more than what we were capable of doing beforehand.
We're talking before about transducers and sounding snapper in the bay.
Yes.
So could you just give us a few tips on what we're just speaking about?
Port Phillip Bay is fairly shallow, right? We're talking 23 metres unless you go to the heads where it's 90 metres. A lot of people are using a TM165, which is 30-degree beam, which is actually quite wide for Port Phillip Bay. It's a 600-watt transducer. Or a lot of the guys are using either SS175 high wides or TM185 high wides, which are a 25-degree beam. Both of those, in that regard, personally, a little bit of an overkill, especially for 23 metres out in the bay. You can get away with a medium chirp transducer, which is a TM150 medium chirp. That'll cover you for Port Phillip Bay, Western Port Bay, and it's not as wide a beam, so your definition is going to be a lot better. Your bottom hardness is going to be better. Overall, with a high wide, it tends to elongate the image, where a narrow or a medium chirp transducer is narrower, and you're getting more information on that unit. So rock, sand, mud, all that information. So you can either spend $2,500 on a 1 kilowatt, you can spend $1,000 on the TM165 high wide, which is 30 degrees, or you can spend something like about $400 on a TM150.
And today Brett's come down and asked if I can explain some of the differences in the V8 product. Obviously there's 3 different platforms of V8. We have CMS, Pro XS and Verado, and a lot of people don't quite understand some of the variations between all 3 of those motors in the recreational platform and what it offers, I guess, to the average boater and how it can benefit them when they're trying to make up that decision of whether they go a standard CMS product or they go to Verado or they go to Pro XS. So I'll take a moment and I'll start with the 250 V8 beside me, which is our conventional mounting system product. And when we refer to conventional mounting system, or known as CMS, we're referring to how it mounts onto the boat itself, which is the same as every other outboard in today's market, doesn't matter the brand, they all have this CMS system. They're all running, whether it's the Pro XS, the Verado, or this engine, they all use the same 4.6 litre V8 outboard motor. So the engine itself, between all 3, is the same product. So with the CMS product, it's a digital throttle and shift engine. So that means that the engine will shift digitally. You have no control cables on the boat either. So from a control box perspective, the engine shift into gear and throttle will be nice and smooth the whole time. One thing with the DDS though, it is quite sensitive and it takes a bit to get used to, but we can adjust that throttle and tighten it up so it's a little bit more resistance on that lever. With DDS product and the controls now that are available from Mercury, you'll get active trim as well. So that means that the motor, when underway, will trim itself and you don't have to worry about doing that anymore. So like I mentioned a moment ago, 4.6 litre V8. On the side of all the motors, you'll have a freshwater flushing port, which is quite handy if you get home late at night and you don't want to start the motor and run fresh water through it. You can just open up that cap there and pull out the freshwater flushing port, connect it to your garden hose, don't start the motor, and then just turn the tap on. And then the next day, if you want to run some fresh water through it, you can flush it through that port. But this is a 250 with the V8 product, and in that CMS, they'll run 250 and 300. That's basically your only 2 options from a horsepower perspective with CMS engines. And as we walk around, this is the Verado product, which features the advanced midsection. So it's a step up from the CMS, and the AMS product is unique to Mercury. Basically, it's a different engine mounting system on how the boat will go onto the transom. You still have that plate there, which obviously we bolt to the transom, but it's this section here that differs from any other outboard on the product. You have a different engine mount system in here, which at idle, you have a softer engine mount, so there's a lot less vibration. When you get up and get underway, the engine mounts shift and become stiffer, and you get more responsive on your steering. Speaking of steering, Standard on the Verado product is power hydraulic steering. So basically it's self-bleeding. So sometimes with standard hydraulic steering, which is what you'll feature on CMS, you can get air in the line and the steering feels really notchy. With the power hydraulic steering, this is self-bleeding. So it takes basically any air out of the system and bleeds it through that power steering pump. There's also the ability to go full electric steering now on any of the Verado product, and in twin engine and single engine applications, you've also got the option to go joystick steering. With Verado, you also have the option to be able to change between sports exhaust, which is what's on Pro XS, to your standard quiet exhaust system, which is what's on your standard CMS product. And what happens is when you push the button on your engine gauge, is it'll shift the exhaust note to above the cavitation plate here in the sports mode. When it's in quiet mode, the exhaust noise will travel down through the propeller. So lastly, we move over to Pro XS, which, as I mentioned before, that same 4.6 litre V8 platform is still on this engine. The same conventional mounting system is what you get as the CMS, is the same on Pro XS. Where Pro XS will differ is it runs that sports exhaust system, which obviously gives you that V8 burble, which doesn't always suit every application or every customer's boat, but some people like the noise. When you are trolling though, if you are fishing, it can be a little bit annoying, I guess, if you're at that sort of 1500 to 1800 RPM all the time, and that's where CMS is a much better option, so you've got that quietness the whole time. The other thing with Pro XS is it does rev a little bit harder, so your standard CMS engine will rev to 6000 RPM to develop its horsepower, whereas Pro XS revs to 6200. So it says 225 on the side of the cowling, but they generally will produce a little bit more horsepower and have that different exhaust note over the standard CMS product.
All right, Andrew, Possum's looking for a bit of a boat he can retire in and go catch some whiting and snapper in Port Phillip Bay and Western Port. Yep. I see this boat behind you. Yep. Do you reckon you can give me a little tour? Sure can, mate. I'll take you from the bow all the way through the transom, then we'll jump up inside the boat and go through it as well. Yep. So this is a Stacer 499 Seamaster. They all come on an aluminium trailer as standard. It's an I-beam aluminium trailer, and it's a full drive-on trailer. So, if he's fishing on his own, it makes it a lot easier to launch and retrieve with, and especially when we put the catch and release featured product on the boat as well. So as he drives up onto the trailer, that catch and release will snare the front of the boat so that he can then turn the motor off and hop out. But it's also very handy when it comes to launching the boat. You just do the reverse process and away you go. The other good thing with the Stacer product is that they feature the Revolution hull design. So for places like Western Port Bay and Port Phillip Bay where they can get a little bit of chop, this curve in the bow here gives you a very soft ride, and it flattens out to a flatter surface on the outside, so you still get really good stability at rest. There's a full length spray rail which runs from the bow all the way through to the transom, so any water that comes up under here gets turned back down away, and it helps for the boat to be nice and dry riding at the same time as well. This one features an anchor winch. So as you know, fishing in Western Port Bay, when it becomes really tidal, you don't want to be pulling in an anchor wherever possible. So having a drum winch on the front of the boat is certainly going to make his life a little bit easier. And when you're always constantly moving, when you're trying to chase whiting, you'll move more and catch more essentially. Front and side clears, which are always handy, especially here in Melbourne on those cold mornings, or like what we had yesterday when it flogged down rain all day. You can get out of the weather. It gives you a warmer boat to sit in as well, but just offers a little bit more protection. This one, we feature one of the 2.1 litre, 75 horsepower Mercury FourStrokes. So it's plenty big enough for the 499 Seamaster. They're rated to 90 horsepower. But it's the same engine, so the 90 and the 75 are exactly the same motor in 2.1 litres. Where they vary is the 75 will rev to 5500 RPM and the 90 revs to 6000 RPM, and that's where it generates that 90 horsepower. In terms of fuel economy, mid-range and acceleration, it's exactly the same. So, the only benefit of putting a 90 on the back was if someone was going to do any sort of water sport activity. And as you can see, this boat here features the ski pole baitboard combination. So, if someone wanted to do a bit of water sport activity, then you might consider going to the 90 just for that little bit more
horsepower in that higher RPM range, but from a fishing boat perspective, the 75 is more than enough because it's got that big capacity engine. This is the SE model, which does have a lot of features to it, which are otherwise options in some of the other models and brands of boats. Things like hydraulic steering, you heard me mention ski pole baitboard combination, features a burley bucket at the back. We've added the optional live bait tank in this boat. So, you know, if you want to throw your squid or whiting or whatever in there. It features cockpit lighting in the sides of the boats, as well as underfloor storage. Has a stereo up the front, which is Bluetooth compatible, so you can stream music straight from your phone. VHF radio, and you've got the tilt adjustable helm in this package, along with your bimini and your front and side clears. Also upgraded seating to a bolster style of seat as well. So the Seamasters are a good option of boat, like I said before, for someone who wants to fish in Western Port and Port Phillip Bay. They do make a range of models in the Seamaster from 429 all the way through to 589. So the models are 429, 449, 481, 499, 519, 539, and then obviously the 589. But if there's any questions, anyone can just pop in and say good day and we'll give them a run through on any of the boats. Obviously we're a North Bank dealer as well, and the 5 metre North Bank's also a good option for someone fishing those two bays.